review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. He's the CEO of Samurai Success Incorporation and a best-selling author too. No other than Mr. David Olcott.
Daniel, thanks for having me on the show, sir.
Welcome to Book 101, Mr. David. And can you please introduce more about yourself?
Sure. I'm the CEO, Stewart of Samurai Success, which is an executive coaching firm. And we've built this over the last 27 years of really making a difference in people's really journey from going from self-employed to business owner. And that's why we wrote the book, and that's why we've been doing what we've been doing in the marketplace. And really excited about talking about it today.
Definitely. And Mr. David, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. And hoping for more and more empowering books like this to come. So let's talk about your best-selling piece. And can you tell us about this? Swords of Illumination.
It's a fascinating book, and not because we're the authors of it, but because of the technology we've learned over the last 30 years or 35 years, and actually what we've been teaching over the last 27. And that's what I really wanted to bring difference to the marketplace is something that actually works. There's lots of different hit and miss kind of strategies out there, but I really wanted to start taking a look at how the universe works spiritually, how we live in this physical plane, and the human experience of both those realms, those three dimensions. And so, as I was going through my journey, one of the most spectacular things I learned, and I'd love to share with you guys, is that we're not here to discover who we are. We're actually here to create who we are. And Daniel, I'm hoping I'm making that as profound as it really sounds because that
Mm-hmm.
is lightning in the bottle. When you take a look at famous people, celebrities, very successful people on this planet, they have a singular element in place and they're very conscious that they're actually creating their own persona, their own identity, their own avatar, if you will. And then they're living that avatar. They're actually doing the things that are very consistent and congruent with the identity they've created. So if you take a look at your favorite celebrity, actor, actress, model, anybody you want to take a look at, someone you have respect for, you're going to find this technology within them. And the book is about those elements of that technology, about how to help you get things and out of your life and really stop thinking about your destiny in different ways, but start attracting that destiny to the person you want to become.
Mr. David, the book emphasizes closing the gap between who you say you are and how you actually are. Can you explain this concept and its importance?
Sure. So this idea here is that we go around with these masks, right? We're saying, hey, we're this person, but then at the home we're doing these things. And one of the interesting things about the universe is that you can't lie to it, right? It knows who you really are. And based upon who you really are, not the masks that we're presenting to all these different people, but who you truly are, that creates a consistency. And that consistency over time creates congruency. That congruency over time creates coherence, which is a frequency, a thing that actually attracts things to you. And the focal point of your attractor factor, attracting things to you as opposed to chasing things, is this coherence. So there's a model that we teach about how the universe actually interacts with us as human beings and how we can actually manifest things in this lifetime, in this physical plane. And that congruency is the important part of that. So, for example, if you're pretending you're this person over here, but you're really this person over here, what you're going to be attracting is based upon this person, not this conscious creation you're doing. It's actually coming from your subconscious programming. And this is where you're attracting all the events in your life. And if you like those events, stay with it. If you don't like those lives, here's a pathway to be able to change those events actually showing up for you by changing that programming inside of you so that you create a different coherence.
Mr. David, how you define a creation and a destiny?
So creation, so destiny. Wow, what a big question. So Creation is something that you and I actually have this ability to do, but it's singular in nature. Who we create ourselves at actually attracts the destiny that's already existing. To kind of give some feedback on this one, in quantum mechanics, there's a term called this idea of pure potentiality, this realm, this dimension where everything has already been created. And as a human being, you can actually tap into that realm of pure potentiality with solutions and answers to things that we're having challenges with on this planet. You have to be able to learn some strategies to be able to do that. And one of those strategies is learning how to get the hell out of your own way so that you can actually download information from that dimensional source code and into this physical realm. And by the way, this isn't so woo woo thing, Daniel. This is what creative people do. Authors do this, artists do this. As a matter of fact, the very first time I became aware of this ability to take source information and download it, I was watching one of my famous people in my life, a gentleman named John Denver. Now, John Denver in the 70s and 80s was huge. I mean, think about your biggest stars today of Taylor Swift or anybody else like this. This is where John Denver was. He was in movies, he was on music, he was on radio, he was just everywhere. And in one of the interviews I watched him, he said to the interviewee, how did you, John was asked, how did you create Country Roads, one of his big songs? He
Yes.
says this famous thing that is haunt me now. It says, it just came to me. Now,
Mm,
Daniel, that
yes.
sounds really kind of like what? Well, if you listen to celebrities, if you listen to musicians today, they'll say the exact phrase. I was just playing along with this. Well, where is that stuff coming from? Where is this imagination coming from? Where do we get access to this? In the realm of the science thing, it's called the realm of pure potentiality. And what you're tapping into is all the solutions and possibilities that already exist, have already been created by the universe that you can tap into. Now, that is so powerful for a human being, for me especially, because I realize as a coach and a teacher and a mentor, I don't have to create the solutions. Those solutions, those answers already exist. All I have to do is learn how to get the heck out of the way and take that information and download that information for other people.
Interesting indeed, Mr. David. Beautifully, beautifully articulated. How did you weave the spirit of Miyamoto Musashi's wisdom into a narrative, and why is philosophy significant for the book?
So my favorite author was a gentleman named Og Bendito. He's transitioned. He's passed away a couple years ago. Interestingly enough, our publisher was very good friends with him before he passed. Been friends with him for a lot of years. And in Og Bendito's books, he worked the fable into things, storylines, and I've always been fascinated by that. So when we started taking a look at taking this technology and put it into a format, the fable became the number one thing to do. And so the storyline is twofold. One is present day, and the other one is kind of ancient in the past, 1500s, if you will, in Japan. And so along the journey, there's a gentleman who has lived life that played by all the rules, done everything right, and still is fighting being successful. It's like it's just not showing up for him. And he's got the wife, he's got the kids, he's got the house, he's got the big job, he's got the income, he's got the debt, and he's just really frustrated with life. And he meets this gentleman on the side of the road and they start this conversation. And that storyline becomes the fable about a young man named Yoshi who wants to become samurai. And interestingly enough, when we think of samurai, we're always thinking about these warriors and people with swords, and that's an appropriate response. But those folks do not exist. The new millennium samurai are people truly in service of others in their business. And that's what we help promote. So the fable is how you in this lifetime can become truly in service of others and all the elements that go along with that.
Can you share a personal experience that influenced the book's focus on finding a living one's destiny?
So I've always been curious about how those three dimensions work: the spiritual realm, the physical plane, and our interaction with it as human beings. So that is this encompassing of this thing called destiny. And for most of my life, I was under the impression that I was here to discover my destiny. I was supposed to uncover it from a rock, or I was supposed to find it somewhere. I was talking to listen, I got to go find myself. And that's when the breakthrough really happened. Was I was talking to quite a few different spiritual masters, and they all said it differently, but they were saying the same theme. And that was, I wasn't here to be able to actually find out who I am, wasn't here to discover who I am. I'm actually here to create who I am. And that's my single most important part of creation. That's what I get to create. All this other stuff is being attracted to that one creation. So you've been familiar with the one ring that controls them all kind of thing. If you've ever heard of Tolstoy and some of the movies he's created with that, the
Hmm.
Lord of the Rings kind of thing. Well, in this scenario, this metaphor, if you will, the one thing that controls your destiny being attracted to you is how you've created your identity. And most of us, Daniel, have not created our own identity. Other people have created it for us, and we're living that life. And that's for most people very frustrating and causes a lot of suffering.
The book is described as a roadmap for clarity and balance in life. What specific lessons from the story help readers achieve this?
So I love the spiritual side of things, but it always was fascinating to me that the masters always spoke in parables, right? About why they did that. So it wasn't very specific. Just tell me what to do, kind of thing. And they would never do that. And it was fascinating to say how you interpret things in this physical plane is actually how you're actually creating your destiny. So in the book, we've made sure that those lessons that we learned from the spiritual masters and life lessons are very practical. Practical means you can apply these. And when you apply them, you start having a different experience. So the elements in the book give you the opportunity to go, oh, I've had a similar experience to that. I'd like to be able to change that by using this one element of the 6 chapters in the first book and 6 chapters that are in the second book, which we're actually still writing right now. You can apply those principles right now and have immediate effect. So it's a roadmap for shifting things, changing things, not the events that are happening in your life, but the experiences of those events.
How did you create the character of Yoshi, and what makes his journey relatable for readers facing personal or professional challenges?
So yeah, Yoshi is such a fundamental part because he's the student going through this lessons, if you will. And all we as human beings, I think and I hope that the readers can relate to that because we're all going through this journey. We're all fellow, travelers in this place, learning these things together. And I know we run into some people who want to tell you, hey, this is the way it works. This is the way it works. But what I want to share with you is Yoshi's journey is so important because he elicits this understanding, this singular principle. There's a entity inside of you, a master inside of you that knows the answers to all the problems you have, to all the questions you've ever had. And that source is within you. Getting back in touch with that source is Yoshi's journey, is really coming to understanding who he really is, creating that, and then living that, and then having the experiences that are attracted by that. So it's a fascinating way to be able to say, hey, I think Yoshi or some one of those characters in that is really going to connect with you as a reader. And that's what it's going to keep you involved in understanding the technology.
The samurai school in the book is called A Crucible of Knowledge. How does the setting enhance the story's theme?
So as Yoshi travels through the book, he then enters a school, a teaching place, right, where it's all centralized and focused on knowledge. And in there, you learn a principle that most of us have been under the impression that knowledge is power. Well, at the School of Aspen, they expand that. And you start to learn that knowledge is only power when you apply it. And this actually goes along with something really important as human beings because one of the reasons we're here, primary reason we're here as a soul, if you will, is to have experiences of things. So in my lifetime, I've had a lot of knowledge, but I wasn't applying it, Daniel. And when I wasn't applying it, I was living a life of suffering because knowledge is not power until you apply it. Once I started applying those things, it was magical. It was miraculous. And then I started understanding this concept of if you really want to shift the things on this planet, if we're really suffering, if we really want to make some big differences, then it isn't about learning new information. It's actually taking the information and knowledge we already have and applying that in my life right now. And at the School of Aspen, Yoshi and his colleagues, if you will, get an opportunity to start seeing the power of that application. And that, I think that's the wonder of it.
Mr. David, reviewers praised the book's blend of action and timeless wisdom. How did you balance storytelling with life changing lessons?
Well, that's a deep question because it actually applies the information we're talking about. So, people want to give us credit. The gentleman who also wrote this book with me, co-author, if you will, Paul Lorette, we definitely know that we downloaded this information. This information came from source. And because of that, that's what makes it so powerful. We kind of got out of the way and just said, hey, what's the most important information about really changing this planet, changing our experiences as human beings? What would make the biggest difference? And because of that, we just downloaded that information straight to the book. So appreciate the fact that people say you're the author of that, but I really was the person who was dictating that information.
Interesting indeed, Mr. David. And can you share a story from a reader who found clarity or purpose through the swords of illumination?
Yeah, there's a lot of different things that lots of different people. So I won't use names for confidentiality reasons, things like that. But I will tell you that I had a gentleman who was really, really struggling with being able to. He knew he wanted to really make a difference in the world, and he had this idea of conscious capitalism, and he was going around and promoting this idea about conscious capitalism. And in the weirdest place, Daniel, he actually flew to China. And this is a fascinating story because when he flew to China, he was talking about conscious capitalism. And he was telling the people around him
Yeah,
that,
sorry for that.
no worries, that conscious capitalism would do this and do this. And he was like, why don't we just collectively take up all these things as opposed to having them in 9 different locations and 9 different people running them? Why don't we centralize this? And the gentleman came back to him in the most interesting way and said this: well, if I take this and make this all one thing, then all my friends can't work with me. And it was fascinating, Daniel, that he recognized at that moment that here he was promoting this conscious capitalism, but the gentleman in front of him from a communist country was actually applying it a lot better than he was. Does that make sense? And
Makes
it's
sense.
just mind blowing, though, that it would come from a place in China. We wouldn't think that, but that's the beautiful thing about being a human being is we're not Americans, we're not China, we're not from South Africa. We're human beings, and we've forgotten that aspect of us that we collectively can do some really remarkable things.
Remarkable indeed. What challenge did you, or what challenges did you face in writing the story that's both a fast paced adventure and a deep exploration of identity?
So probably the biggest challenge was getting myself out of my own way. My own ego wanted to keep jumping into the story because I got fascinated by it. Right? I was like, "This is a fun story. Let's go this way and this way." And it was just hard getting my own ego out of the way because I know that's not what the reader needs. You don't need my ego involved. You have enough of your own ego to deal with. You don't need mine in the book. And that's what Paul and I really focused on is just staying out of the way enough to be able to download the really great information out of that. And that's why I'm really because I think we actually eliminated probably about 20 pages of information that we just recognized were just very ego based, very much, us telling you what to do with your life. And we're like, that doesn't fit here. So really going back to the source of it, really making sure that stayed congruent with that was really important to us.
The book has been called Beacon in the Dark for readers seeking wisdom. What impact do you hope it has on your audience?
Well, I'm hoping that it's had the same impact that it's had on me in your own unique way. The single most important part of the whole book was if you really understood the power of being able to create who you say you are and then living the actions that are necessary to be part of that. For example, if I say I'm a world-class athlete and I sit on the couch over there and I eat Cheetos, those two things don't go together, right? I'm not going to be long-term world-class athlete if I'm not eating healthy. So there are certain actions that go along with certain belief systems. And that belief system, your most powerful belief system, is your identity. So once you create your identity for yourself and not from other people, then you can start doing things that you really love. As a matter of fact, if you're struggling, liking this over here, and then the next day you're liking this over here, and then 2 months from now you're liking this over here. You don't know what you want because you don't know who you are. Getting clear about who I was and creating that started eliminating all those distractions for me. As a matter of fact, Daniel, the biggest thing that happened to me was all the clutter in my head started going away. All the voice in my head. We should be doing this. What about this? What if that? That would drive me crazy because I was never being enough. Now I'm very focused on what I want to accomplish when I'm here. And if that resonates with you, that book is for you.
Definitely. And very well said, Mr. David. Beautifully, beautifully articulated. Well done.
Yay!
Yay! The CEO, as a CEO of Samurai Success Incorporation, and of course, a best-selling author. What are your short-term and long-term goals?
So we're in the midst of attracting new clients and attracting new coaches for our business. So we've been working on this structure for the last 27 years. Now it's time to grow. And I know that sounds really straight because it's interestingly enough, after 27 years, you're not a startup. We actually are. We're moving into the growth phase of actually hiring coaches, training those coaches, and then being able to have them access to clients. So that's our really next big phase. We have 3 what we call pods, because at Samurai Success, when you hire us, you don't hire one coach, you actually hire 3 coaches that all work collectively on your business together. One is a psychology coach, if you will, peak performance. And the other one is a design coach, really focusing on the processes and structure of your business model, and making sure that it's effective and efficient. And there's the finance side. So this is a very unique concept in the marketplace, and why our businesses are doing so well, even in the midst of all this chaos that people are facing. Our clients are doing exceptionally well because of this.
Good luck to your goals, Mr. David, and looking forward for more success. And what would be your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be, of course, like you?
Okay, so I think the best piece of advice is I spent a big part of my life wanting to be another person. And probably the best advice I can say is discovering who you are is something that a lot of people are going to do. You have a unique opportunity to create who you are. We can help you with that, or you can do this on your own. But right now, all the things going on in your life is because of that identity you've either created, or someone helped to create, or someone gave to you and you accepted it. The big shift that really can happen on this planet is realizing you get to create who you say you are, be congruent and consistent with the actions you take upon that, and do not let anybody distract you from that. And if you take a look at that formula I just shared with you, you'll find that formula in every successful person on this planet.
Thank you for your advice, Mr. David. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
Oh my gosh, I've read so many books, but the ones that I come back to year after year, um, incorporated in this, is Think and Grow Rich, of course, by Napoleon Hill, Mastery by George Leonard. Fascinating book when it comes to spiritual things. And really, the book that probably shifted me the most was a book called A Conversation with God with Neil Donald Walsh, who's been a spiritual mentor for me for the last 25 years.
Thank you for that recommended book, Mr. David, or recommended books. So, for listeners of Book 101 Review and as well as the viewers, what's one practical takeaway from Swords of Illumination to live a life of purpose?
So going right back to what we've talked about the whole session, creating that identity and then aligning your behaviors with that, and not being distracted by any other behaviors that do not align with who you are. There's 3 ways that we really can live life. And that is doing things for others, doing things for yourself, whoever that self is, if you will. And finally, where I want to be able to create my destiny from is living a life because it simply represents who I say I am. But you've got to do the work to be able to do that third phase, creating that knowledge of information and actually applying that on a consistent basis. That will take you places that most people aren't going to experience.
Definitely. And Mr. David, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too. Comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well. Geography 101 in its fourth season, and my baby podcast, Law 101 and Mental Health 101. Love Letters in third season, and Movie 101 Review and Music 101 in its first season, and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. Mr. David, you've hinted at a sequel in interviews. Can you share any insight about what's the next for the Swords of Illumination?
So the main character, Tom Henderson, and Yoshi continue the path of finding out all the elements when it comes to changing this programming concept, if you will. And there are 12 elements. The first book is really focused on the first 6 elements in sequence and order. And the next book is going to be about how that all really helps the main character really start resolving some of the big issues that he's been facing in his life. So it's a fun and compelling story. It definitely will keep you on the edge of your seat. It's from our reviews, from our other folks that have actually read the book so far. It's a fun, inviting book, and it's on audio. So if you don't like to read necessarily, there's an audio version to be able to, and really highly recommend that.
I love audiobooks. Mr. David C. Olcott, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. And we are hoping for more and more empowering books like this to come. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your books, or wherever projects that you're doing right now?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, the best way to reach out to us is at samuraisuccess.com. It's always our first. We're on LinkedIn, um, Facebook, and Instagram. I'm new to this field, if you will, kind of stuff. So we have over 100 videos there. So if you're interested in the concept we talked about today, or just want to know a little bit more about us, that's our best source. Right now, we're just launching our group Swords of Illumination coaching program, which is exactly what we talked about, taking the book and actually applying it into your life. So if you're interested in that, please let us know. We'd love to be of service.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. David Olcott, because if you support him, for sure, more and more and more best-selling books to come, more and more empowering advocacy to come, and for sure, more and more empowering business to come. So, Mr. David, thank you so much for your time.
Mr. Daniel, thank you so much for your time. Truly appreciate the amazing work you've done. I mean, I know how much work this is, so thank you.
Thank you so much. More to come, people. See you soon.